Hi everyone, this is Dr. Cilio. I'm just posting another instructional video related to your assignment due this week, which is your discussion board 1. This will help you guide you through all 3, which is applying the theories of behavior change that we've learned up until this point to your health behavior. Hopefully there's not too much competing noise. As you know, I'm in Uganda for my research. You can see my mosquito net behind me. But I hope this is helpful in guiding you through this assignment. So I'll try to go through this quickly and make this brief. All of this information is in your syllabus and it's within the Blackboard system as well. But basically your next 3 discussion board assignments are going to be following this format. You're basically taking one of the health behaviors that we've learned and applying it to your health behavior theories that we learned and applying it to your health behavior. So this should be your approved health behavior. And keep in mind which of the 2 things that you've identified as your health behavior versus your health status. So this is not, if you're focused on contraceptive use with the outcome being unintended pregnancy, your health behavior is contraceptive use. So you should not be applying this model to a disease specifically. It's the health behavior that leads to that disease or reduces the risk of that disease. So definitely keep that in mind. If you haven't reviewed my comments that I put within your health status worksheet, it will be important to do that because there were a number of you that didn't use the health behavior that was approved or seemed to misunderstand sort of, what is the health behavior versus the health status. So it's going to be important that you're using the same health behavior throughout because all of this builds into your final paper. So you're using something different each time. At the end of the semester, you're not going to be able to just take the work you've been doing and revise it and build on it for your final paper. You'll be like starting from scratch. So if you have questions about that, email me. This will all take place under the group tabs, not the discussion board tab in Blackboard. And if you look back at an earlier announcement I made, I have all of your groups listed. So the discussion board post is a 2-part assignment. You'll first do your initial post, applying a theory to your behavior, specific to your priority population. And then after the due date of the initial post, all your peers should have posted, and you'll respond to one peer applying a different health behavior, one that they didn't use, to their health behavior theory, to their health behavior. So if my health behavior is contraceptive use and and unintended pregnancy being the outcome, my first initial post would be applying a theory of my choice out of the 3 options to that topic. But then when I respond to a peer, I'm going to use a theory that they didn't use, but apply it to their behavior. So if their behavior is smoking, then I'm going to be applying it to smoking, not my topic. So I hope that's clear. Each of these are 10 points each, so they are equally weighted. So you should put, equal amount of effort into both. Okay, so the general objective is for the initial post is you have 3 theories for this first post that you can choose from, and you're going to use it to explain the behavior, which is what we call using the theory in an explanatory theory approach. And then you're also going to use it to explain how you can change your behavior. And this should be specific to your priority population. So don't make this like so general. If you are focusing on Hispanic adolescents, then you should be talking about explaining that your behavior in Hispanic adolescents and changing the behavior in that group. And populations are all different, so these theories, need to be adapted to the priority population for them to make sense. So, the way someone would apply one of these theories for say, exercise for Hispanic youth would be very different using the same theory if you were applying it to, you know, adults in Uganda where I am, right? Because there's a lot of different factors that influence those two populations. So it should be tailored to your priority population. So for the initial post, there's sort of like a rubric, a bulleted list of how the appoints are assigned within the syllabus. They're outlined in this slide as well. Basically, you should first write about one paragraph that identifies and discusses the overall concept of the theory that you've chosen, and how that can be applied to the behavior you've selected for your priority population. So basically describe the theory overall, like, you know, how is it used? What are its overall constructs? And how it can be applied. Your next objective would be identifying how each of the theory's constructs, and when we say constructs, we're talking about the sort of like factors within each. So in, for example, the theory of planned behavior, there's like subjective norms, there's, you know, behavioral beliefs. Those are the constructs. So you should be talking about each construct and how it applies to explaining the behavior. So I'll give you an example at the end of, you know, how that would sort of play out. But, you know, I'm going to be looking to make sure you understand what the construct really is in your application, and that you use each one to, you know, really in a logical way talk about how that would explain someone's, you know, engagement in your behavior or not. And then you'll conclude with 1 to 2 paragraphs where you'll discuss how the theory can be used to change, increase, or either increase or reduce the likelihood that individuals in your priority population would engage in the behavior. So, you know, these theories, again, if we have a theory and we think these constructs lead to a behavior, or lead to, you know, not engaging in a behavior, then if we change those constructs through intervention, you know, approaches, then we can influence change in that behavior. That is the logic there. So we should be talking about how it explains the behavior and then how it can be changed. In response, in your second part of this, which is after your peers all make their posts, after your initial post, you'll just select one peer. You don't have to reply to every peer. It'll be good throughout the semester to try and select other people and not all comment on the same person. And you'll critique the work of that student and then also apply a different theory than the one the student chose to explain their behavior. Again, not yours, theirs. So you're trying to expand your own knowledge beyond just your own behavior and think about how these can be applied to other behaviors. So, you know, first 2 points go to just an overall critique of your classmates' application of their theory to their behavior. So give them feedback on, you know, what they did well, what you didn't really understand, what needs like further explanation, where maybe they went off the rails or didn't complete that assignment, or maybe they misunderstood some of the constructs as you understand them. So it should be not just, oh, great job or something like that. It should be a critique, which means you're giving like substantive feedback on what they've done. And then you're gonna apply an alternative theory to the classmates' behavior. So you cannot select the same one that they've done. So if they've done the theory of health behavior with smoking, and then you reply with the theory of health behavior and smoking, you're just ending up duplicating their work. So you really should be, you have to be, or, you know, if you don't, you won't get credit, selecting one of the other ones. So if they did the theory of planned behavior, then you can do, you know, one of the other ones. And then, you know, you're basically following the same format as you did for your own after that point. the application of the alternative theory to your classmates' behavior, and discussion of how that theory can be used to change behavior. These don't really need, references at this point, but if you want to be extra prepared for your final paper, you could be looking into the literature and start to collect some references and studies that have shown, how these actually do apply, or how intervention strategies mapped onto these theories have been shown to change the behavior. Because in your final paper, you will need references for this, but it's not required for the purpose of the discussion board. So over the 3 different discussion board posts, you'll be choosing one of these theories that we basically just learned about. So for this first one, it's the health belief model, the theory of planned behavior, or the trans-theoretical model. So you're not obviously going to jump ahead and be applying a theory that we haven't learned, or applying one that that you find in the literature that's not covered in this class. It has to be one of those 3. So I wanted to give you just like an overview example, not in detail, not a written example, but just verbally walk you through, if I was doing this assignment, how I would go about applying this, one of these theories to a health behavior. So in my research now in Uganda, we are focusing on contraceptive use among couples in rural areas of Uganda. If you don't know, Uganda is in Eastern Africa. So if I was using the theory of planned behavior to understand or explain how contraceptive use being my behavior maps onto this model, and this explains, whether someone will engage in the behavior or not, I would use these different constructs to explain, specific to my priority population, which is rural Ugandan couples, explain how these constructs apply to my behavior. So for example, like these external variables, in my context, we know that cultural norms, the status of having a large family in rural areas, gender norms about men and women's roles, physical actual access to contraceptives. Some communities don't have access, or have geographical barriers to accessing like a health clinic. Those are external variables that are influencing these other factors. So they're sort of broader, outside of the individual factors. Or they can be within the individual, like demographics, like someone's age is going to obviously affect their contraceptive use. Somebody's number of existing children, if they're in a relationship or not, all of those things are going to influence. Those are demographic factors that would also influence someone's use of contraceptives. And those influence the constructs within the theory of planned behavior. So then I would also go through each of these constructs and explain how they relate to the use of contraceptives in this specific setting. So an example of behavioral beliefs, which influences attitudes, is, how do people feel about contraceptives? What are the sort of attitudes and beliefs around contraceptives? If there are beliefs that there are major side effects, which that is a barrier here, then they're going to have more negative attitude towards using contraceptives. So attitudes about whether they're effective, whether they're going to cause major side effects, that is a behavioral belief that influences a positive or negative attitude. The evaluations of behavioral outcomes is related to that, also influences outcomes. If I use this method, will it actually affect my, my reduced rate of pregnancy? Will it work? Normative beliefs, which influence subjective norms, is very big for my priority population. And actually in the intervention that we're implementing here, that's a big part of what we are aiming to change. So for women in Uganda, or in this setting in Uganda, they're very influenced by what their partners feel about contraceptives. Even if, maybe they want to delay pregnancy, they might be more worried about what their partner thinks, or what the broader community thinks. Because if there's cultural norms that say you should have a really large family, and to be a sort of successful woman, you should have a lot of children because that's a woman's role. So those beliefs that come from the broader cultural system influence, basically our perception of how others view the behavior, and that influences our perception of, of whether we'll actually plan to do that behavior or not. And then control beliefs and perceived power also in this setting is important. This is sort of like self-efficacy, the equivalent of self-efficacy. So a perceived power, like what is my individual ability to actually use contraceptives? If a woman feels like it's not their place in a relationship to make that decision, then they have low perceived power, or their control, their ability to access contraceptives, their ability to talk to their partner about it. All of these things influence their perceived control over the situation. So this is, that's not a totally comprehensive, I'm not going to go over every single construct, but that's sort of an overview of how these constructs explain my behavior of contraceptive use in my specific population. If you're doing contraceptive use in, say, young adults in San Antonio, it should be different because it's different for every population. There'll be overlap, but still some things weigh more heavily in certain settings and in certain cultures. And then the next part of this, that part one would be talking about how the same theory can be used to change a behavior, so increase contraceptive use. So if we are looking at, this model, we might say, well, these subjective norms are so powerful in this setting, we need to have an intervention that changes the perception of other people's, like the communities and partners and your peers' acceptance of using family planning. So in our intervention, that is what we're doing. We're trying to change the attitudes around contraceptives and the misinformation, and we're trying to change the subjective norms, and then also the control that women have, and the perceived power and actual power that women have to negotiate and talk about these things with their partner, and give them, more skills and self-efficacy around doing that within a relationship. So I would talk about how all of those things can be changed in an intervention to influence increasing contraceptive use. So I hope that's clear. I don't want to make this too long, so I'm going to wrap it up. But it'll be, important to take time with this, because this, essentially you're going to use in your final paper. So the more effort you put into it to really make everything really clear and make sure you hit every single construct as it applies to your health behavior is going to just serve you well in the long run, because in your final paper you'll be able to use it, adapt it based on my feedback and your peers' feedback, but it'll be, a lot of the work will be done. Then again, if I was doing this assignment in my response to my peer, I would not be applying this to contraceptive use. I would be applying, a different theory than they used to whatever behavior they're focused on. Okay, so send me questions via email or post them on the discussion board, and good luck. Thanks.